Have you thought about what you will do when you finish Bible college? Have you considered how you will fulfill the Great Commission and preach the gospel? Would you like to change people's lives and impact a group of people in ministry? Have you ever considered the call to pastor? Christ told Peter that if he loved him, he would feed his sheep. And in the New Testament, pastoring was usually associated with shepherding because that was the pastor's primary goal, was to take care of the flock. And so by fulfilling the call to pastoring, we can show Christ our love and feed his sheep. I grew up a pastor's daughter. My grandfather was a pastor for 40 years, and I was privileged to be married to a pastor, so I've been surrounded by pastors my entire life. I have seen the difficulties that can be involved in pastoring. I know what the responsibilities are and the requirements, but I've also seen the rewards that come with pastoring, and they're great. The purpose of this presentation is to inform you of the responsibilities of pastors, the requirements that are associated with entering that job, and the income and rewards that are also come with this position. I intend to inform you of the duties that ministers are typically called upon to perform, the characteristics and requirements of pastoring that will be detailed. I will briefly discuss the rising trend in female pastors, and then I'll give you the salary range that pastors can expect to make. The responsibilities of pastors are varied from congregation to congregation. They are usually expected to perform sermon preparation. They may be called upon to do pastoral visitation, administrative duties, care of church members, counseling, and certainly to raise up leaders. William Robertson, one of the authors of the book And He Gave Pastors, has said that it's important to question board members when you candidate for a pastor to see what their expectations for the pastor are, because some churches would like the senior pastor to spend the bulk of their time in sermon preparation and associates take care of other duties, while some small churches may ask the pastor to do everything from cleaning toilets to preparing sermons and visiting church members. It is not the pastor's job to perform every duty in the church. It's the pastor's job to equip the saints and to call upon them to perform their gifts of the Spirit and to fill those roles as well. The requirements for pastoring are different from congregation to congregation as well. Some denominations require that you have certain credentials or some upper level education. It is becoming more common for churches to ask for those things, a degree in seminary or credentials through a denomination. Biblical qualifications can be found in 1 Timothy 3, and they include things like being above reproach, being the husband or wife of one spouse, to be temperate, self-controlled, sober, and certainly the Bible gives emphasis on the husband needs to be able to control his family. That's a good indication of whether or not he can control a church. So some churches may ask that a pastor provide some kind of a testimony or statement of beliefs, and they will certainly question your marriage, previous marriages that you may have, and ask you questions about your family. Again, higher education might be necessary. According to the Assemblies of God website, they ask for Bible education, and they also ask that their ministers have training in the history and polity of the Assemblies of God. According to the Church of God website, they require that ministers go through a 3-month internship program, and then you have to have a certain amount of experience before you can reach their ordained minister and ordained bishop levels. There is a rising trend in female pastors. In a Barna study that was conducted in 2009, it said that in 1990, only 5% of pastors were women. But as of 2009, that number had doubled to 10% of pastors were women. And in association with that, too, it showed that more women pastors had a higher degree of education. 77% of women pastors had a seminary degree versus only 63% of men. So there is a rising trend in women pastors, and educated women pastors at that. Most pastors do not join this profession for the income, certainly. Some churches might pay a decent salary, but in a lot of churches it's necessary to be bivocational and to hold a secular job. A recent study by the National Association of Church Business Administration, as quoted in a report by the Crown Financial Ministries, has said that the average pastor of a church of 300 makes about $28,000 a year annually. 5% can expect to earn more than $50,000,
but 14% earn less than $25,000. So it's certainly not a job that is lucrative financially, but there are a great number of non-financial rewards when you get to perform weddings and funerals and baby dedications and to be part of your church members' lives. 2 Corinthians 5:10 says that each one may receive what is due him for the things done well in the body. So we know that there's a hope of eternal reward. Pastors have varied responsibilities. Each congregation will determine the pastor's responsibilities. That may be prepping sermon, visiting church members, raising up leaders. Pastors' requirements center on their character. They should be the husband of one wife, have a good family life. Some higher education might be necessary, but it will certainly be beneficial. Pastors can expect to make between $25,000 to $50,000, and there's certainly an increased trend in female pastors and an increased need for that. So I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to convey to you the roles, responsibilities, requirements, and rewards of being a pastor. It is God who calls men and women to be pastors. In the words of Hardy Steinberg, one of the contributors to that book, And He Gave Pastors, they must get their instructions from Him, they must have His approval on their work, and in the end they will have to give an account to Him for every day of their ministries. There is a great need for pastors and great satisfaction in obedience to God's call on one's life in this area.